Speak to our hearts, Holy One, your message of life and new love. Amen. Please be seated. Rules, rules, rules. Warning. We have two young people in the house this morning. Aiden's working on something, so he may not hear parts of this. And that's okay, Aiden. From youth until mature age, we've had rules. All of our lives. I see somebody just shrug their shoulders just now. Pause for a moment. How many of you can recall a childhood rule? And the fact that you remember them tells me that rules have stuck with you. Now, how many of you can think of at least one rule that you've broken? Don't put your hand up. Confession is good for the soul. Have you considered that our human lives are a series of never-ending rules? Now, a rule need not be a bad thing, but do we need so many? After all, we've all heard the saying, perhaps, that rules are made to be broken. And if they're made to be broken, why do we have them in the first place? And I've long had an interest in that saying and what it actually means and how it enables some people. And so I looked it up, and, there is some explanations. There are times when we should think for ourselves and not necessarily blindly obey rules. Or the fact that it's okay to disobey a rule with some qualifiers. Let's be honest with ourselves, that it just seems that there's something that draws us to break a rule every now and then. It could be defiance, it could be for education, it could be, the rule just doesn't make any sense, or any number of rules or reasons. We've been breaking rules from Adam and Eve. We all know that story. Don't go to the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And off they go, and we know what happens. It's just simple. For some people, no means yes. Now, I'm not sure about some of you, but is there anybody here who remembers Robert's Rules of Order? Oh, yes, everyone's nodding. Everyone's nodding. Okay, so you need to know I'm much younger at this stage, and I'm trying to have this meeting, and I botch up the process of Robert's Rules of Orders, and boy, was I taken to task. I had no respect for Robert's Rules of Order and the procedures that it went through, and I might have, I've never used them since. We're all bound by rules of some sort. It doesn't matter if you're living on the street or, as we've seen recently, the highest echelons of power, such as the past president of a nation in decline to the south of us. I don't know about you, but I don't know of any organization that doesn't have rules. Do you? We know that there are different types of rules that governs our lives. Societal rules. Be kind to each other. If you have a dog, make sure you scoop up after it. School rules, healthcare rules, business rules, travel rules, government rules, you get the picture. The question is, who benefits from these rules? You see, rules are spoken and unspoken. Rules can be good or bad. Rules can be used to unite or divide. We stop at a stop sign because a pedestrian is on the walkway. We don't roll through. Well, some people still do, but that's a good rule. We stop. Restricting people's voting rights, not so good. Rules should be about how we conduct ourselves as individuals and how we connect with others for the better. You know the amazing golden rule, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. In several certain cases, it's only when rules are broken, however, that we get progress. Consider the civil rights movement. Consider the women's rights movement, indigenous and pride. There are various protest movements around our world, and indeed in our country, except for the Ottawa protests, all wanting progress about the environment, about food scarcity, housing, healthcare, and the list goes on. Now, the one major group that you may be thinking that I have omitted is the church. Boy, or let me be gender, girl, or wherever you see yourself. Do we ever have rules? Some are clearly obvious and helpful. Some, however, leave me scratching my head. And we want to say, but why? Now, there's just us and you. That's not to be shared outside of incarnation, in case it goes back to the diocese. This brings us to our gospel account. Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And there appeared a woman, we're told, with a spirit that had crippled her for 18 years. She was bent over and unable to stand up straight. She, unlike us, saw the world very differently. This woman, I'm attracted to her. I want to find out more about her. Who is she? She's somebody's mother. She's somebody's grandmother. She could be somebody's sister. She could be an aunt. She could be a friend. I also see her as representing others, the marginalized, the downtrodden, the hungry, the homeless, those suffering with mental health concerns, refugees, the racialized, and all of the others. She was there, obvious, but yet she was invisible to so many others. People might not have wanted to see her until suddenly she was called out. We have no idea how old she was, but she was in the synagogue, we assume, to do what any other Jew would have done, to worship and to learn. We've often talked about synagogues, and it dawned on my mind that, I refer to it often, and I had really forgotten. And I realized that synagogue simply means shul, our English word for school. This is where people go, Jewish people go, to learn and study Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. Synagogue looks very similar to us, our space here. There are either pews or there are chairs, and some people say that, they're positioned such that they face towards Jerusalem. Every shul or synagogue has 5 distinct features. There's the scrolls. There's a bima, a raised platform where most of the service takes place. There's a siddur. This is where the main prayer book is. There's the Ark of the Covenant, in which the Torah scrolls are kept. And there is an eternal light that is in front of the Ark. So there you have a scenario. This woman was there. How long had she been attending? All her life? Maybe she attended monthly. Maybe she attended weekly. Like some of us, she may have even sat in the same seat and dare somebody to sit in her chair. She's entering. And I get the impression that she may very well be late because Jesus is already talking. Maybe she tried to slither in the side way, but he notices her immediately. Jesus looked at her. She was nameless like so many other women in the New Testament or the Second Testament. He called her out in front of everyone. Obviously, she was a little embarrassed. He pointed her out. How many of us remember when we were in school and the teacher asked a question? And we're sitting there and we're praying, please don't ask me, I don't know. And we've got this look of shock. And of course, the teacher, I know this, we look for that look and we pick that person out. And fortunately, they get the right answer. The woman went as requested. Did she move quickly? Did she move slowly? Was she confident or was she questioning? I don't know. I know that she went to Jesus as told. He laid his hands on her and she was healed. What's the obvious for people when something amazing, marvelous happens? There's disbelief, there's joy. She may have shouted, she may have danced, she may have cried or shown any range of emotions. Or maybe she simply said to herself, "Great is your faithfulness, O God," or whatever name that is used in Hebrew, our Creator. Today we may say something like, "Great is your mercy towards me. Your loving kindness I see. Your tender mercies I see day after day. Forever faithful towards me, always providing for me. Great is your mercy, I see. Great is your grace." We don't know if she left the synagogue. We don't know if she left the synagogue or she hung around. We don't know what part of the service she was healed in, but Luke tells us that it happened. This woman with no name, this woman with no status, suddenly Jesus calls her daughter of Abraham. I've never seen that in the New Testament before. And what a privilege. Yes, sons of Abraham, but daughter of Abraham, she's immediately elevated. What an honor. But in the midst of this joy, in the midst of this miraculous act, conflict occurs. It's about a rule that we started talking about. Oh no, what has Jesus done now? We are told that the leader of the synagogue replied with zealous indignation. Controversy erupted. There was an exchange of beliefs. I want to be clear here. The synagogue personnel was not a bad person. He was rigidly adhering to what he had been taught about his faith. And his complaint against Jesus' healing on the Sabbath was based on his faithful reading of the Torah. Work was prohibited. Of course, the debate was whether or not healing was actually work. Jesus reprimanded the man because people also took animals to get water. So what really is the difference here? Well, there's a lot of difference. Was not the life of the woman more important than an animal? Yes, we can say so, but for that person, the animal was attached to the economy, and women were not. The Mishnah Shabbat, which outlines 39 types of forbidden work on the Sabbath, says nothing about healing. Also, Jesus' response is not a rejection of Torah. Instead, he argued from legitimate allowances of restricted kinds. Then Jesus argued for healing on the Sabbath, based on the great worth of the woman as a daughter of Abraham, and the appropriateness of healing on the Sabbath. What other day, what other best day can we get when somebody would be healed than in a church, in a synagogue, on a Sabbath, on the Sunday? Jesus acted not according to rules, but according to grace and mercy. He moved beyond restrictive rules to healing, wholeness, and liberation. Like any debate, we can imagine there were people supporting Jesus. Oh yes, those liberal types. And then there's the conservatives on the other side. Never the two would meet. Yet the opponents realized that Jesus had a point. And this passage challenges all of us who may have settled into some narrowed interpretations of Scripture or less charitable, theological, aggressive teachings that divide us. Today, when systems say that they can only do so much, when agencies place hindrances on our way because of rules, when systemic societal barriers are erected that ensure it's difficult for any group to achieve or be successful, or to work towards a sense of fairness and equity, someone needs to proclaim there's got to be an option. And then not only proclaim, but do something. That's what Jesus did. As a Jewish rabbi, he knew the law. He knew that he had a choice. Either he could stick with the law or he could withdraw God's grace. When systems dictate no and say hold on or wait a while, a contemporary prophet stands up and proclaims, oh no, we won't. When systems say that there is no hope or there's no reason for change, a modern-day prophetess stands up and declares, change has got to come and we will orchestrate it. When systems say, sorry, there's nothing less to do, someone will rise up and say, as long as there is life, there is hope. We are challenged yet again to confront systems, rules that don't work, that oppress people, encase them in their past, and hinder progress, because there appears no other way. But there is another way. Today, like that woman who joyfully left the synagogue, we proclaim God is liberator, God is healer, God is the living, God is the change in us. May it be so.